that you have all of your patterns. Front facing, front, back top, back. Sew up the darts on the front and back panels. To sew up the front dart, pin and prepare the bust dart and the waist dart. For the section along the curve, pinch the cloth and place the pins in perpendicularly. Sew the waist dart and the bust dart how you would normally. For the area at the curve, sew close to the edge of the fabric. Flip to the front and check that there are no folds. Sew the zipper along the center back, starting 1 cm from the top, with a 1.5 cm seam allowance. Finish up the bottom of the zipper all the way until the slit opening, with a 1.5 cm seam allowance. For the rest of the center back, fold in the seam allowances and iron well. Top stitch 1 cm from the folded edge. Fold the ribbon into half and sew 1 cm from the folded edge. Away the excess seam allowance, leaving behind only 0.5 cm of seam allowance. Using a loop turner or any other tool, turn the ribbon inside out. Iron well. Cut 6 cm from one completed ribbon. Fold it into half and sew 1.5 cm from the folded edge. Cut away the excess seam allowance, leaving behind 0.5 cm. Insert the elastic band into the shortened ribbon. I'll be using a loop turner. Be careful not to let the elastic slip all the way in. Baste it 0.5 cm along the edge. Once it's secure on one end, continue to pull the elastic band out from the other side. baste the end with a 0.5 cm seam allowance. Insert the fastening and sew them down together. Match up the 4 completed ribbons to the 4 corners of the front panel. Then baste them down with a 0.5 cm seam allowance. Sew the front facing to the front panel with a 1 cm seam allowance. Grab a pair of scissors and snip into the seam allowances to reduce the tension and the bulk. Sew the inner and outer back top panels together with a 1 cm seam allowance. Grab a pair of scissors and snip into the seam allowances to reduce tension. Flip open and push all seam allowances towards the inner panel and iron well. On the right side, understitch on the inner back top panel. Align the inner and outer panels together and baste along the open edge with a 0.5 cm seam allowance. Sew the back top and back panels together with a 1 cm seam allowance. On the front panel, mark out the waist notches. Align the front and back panels together at the waist. Push away the front facing and sew the front and back panels together along the side seam with a 1 cm seam allowance. Fold down the front facing and sew it down along the side seam with a 1 cm seam allowance. Grab a pair of scissors and snip into the seam allowances to reduce the bulk. Push all the seam allowances towards the front facing and iron well. Flip to the right side and understitch on the front facing. On the back panel, fold in the top of the zipper by 1 centimeter and iron well. Top stitch 0.8 cm from the folded edge. To determine the perfect length for you, try the dress on and adjust the length of the ribbon accordingly. Cut away the excess and sew it down. Fold up the skirt hem by 6 centimeters and iron well. Then top stitch 5 centimeters from the folded edge. And there you have it! Your dress is completed.